back to ThursdAI, everyone. Today is August 21st, and this is ThursdAI. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases from Cohere, from CoreWeave. Cohere is going to be featured on the show, but we're not affiliated with them for sure. And we also have here Wolfram. Welcome, Wolfram. How are you, man?
Hello, everyone. A bit tired, but yeah.
Let's do it. And then we have Nistan as well. Nistan, what's up, man?
Hey, guys. Just give it another hour or two. We'll get more releases.
It feels like they're going to continue to drop as well.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
We already got something. So we already have breaking news, and we'll probably have LDJ as well. I am back in my home studio, back from travels that feel like so long ago. We are here to discuss this week's news. And as often happens, yesterday it seemed like it's going to be a fairly chill week to cover. Some other labs had different plans for us. So we already have like 2 breaking news pretty much. I think we're going to get started with DeepSeek, the update that people have been waiting for. We also have Cohere releasing a new reasoning model, also in open source as well, beats GPT-OSS. And we're going to mention our friends Qwen releasing editing models and going back and forth. There's going to be a very interesting show. Today, probably a more compact show. I'm going to have to drop a little bit earlier, but folks, if there's going to be a good debate, I'm going to stop this. And so we'll do the regular 2 hours. With that, I think we'll do a quick round of what was the most interesting thing to you this week, and then we'll move on to TLDR, and then we will start with the show with open source. I was sick the whole week, so I wasn't even like looking at X, and I think I chose a good week to be sick in because at least in the beginning there was not a lot of news. How about you?
A lot of people have started using the smaller models with either open code or Crush. And I was surprised that they would, and a bunch of updates came that allowed them to use them. And normally I'm the first to report on these things, but quite a few people are actually using the 30B coder now as their laptop's internal thing, and they actually like it. So this is one of the more interesting things I noticed, because up until now it was either very enthusiastic people or you make it for some type of tool. But I'm hearing from a few very somewhat random people, which I did not expect, and they actually like using them now. So I think this is a bit of a shifting moment where these tools become something else.
Interesting.
Yeah, people are vibe coding with their local models and actually using it for work too, and that was not usually the case. So this was the most interesting thing for me.
Wolfram, how about you?
So when the image editing model from Qwen came out, that was very exciting for me because I have immediate use cases for this. And when the DeepSeek V3.1 appeared on Hugging Face, I immediately became excited. And there was no model card. And no, it was only the base model. So I was excited and hopeful that it came. And now it's fully there, model card and the instruct model as well. So that is my highlight of the week. And I'm looking forward to use this.
100% DeepSeek as well. Yam, how about you?
I have connection issues, but definitely DeepSeek. Definitely DeepSeek. Big one. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm coming through. Even with the connection issues, it's clear the excitement about DeepSeek. All right, folks. Well, I think for me as well, the thing that I noticed very early, like a couple of days ago, DeepSeek has dropped a new model on Hugging Face. It was just a base model and no model card or no nothing. And people started speculating. People were like, what? You know, started getting, as always, DeepSeek without an announcement. They used to do stuff like this. But hey, and then I prepared the show notes yesterday and I was like, okay, done, chill week. I will talk about DeepSeek's model with no model card, and I will tell people that, you know, and then tonight, like what, 7 hours ago, they dropped the full model card and instruct version of DeepSeek V3.1, which is a hybrid reasoning model that beats R1. So the whole R1 thing that, again, will remind folks, broke the whole internet, the whole stock exchange, dropped in NVIDIA price, and then came back up, like all of that. They now released a hybrid model that's significantly better than that. So let's talk about it. Let's not delay and dive right into our TLDR as much as it is. Let's run through it. And let's go. Alrighty, so this is it. TLDR. This is basically the list of things we'll talk about. There's a few more things that Wolfram you sent me that's not on here, so please pause me after I finish and then add them as well. But basically, we're gonna run through and talk about, I think in open source, the most important release this week is from DeepSeek. They dropped an updated hybrid V3.1 model that beats their R1 model from the beginning of the year, and also the V3 model that they had almost a year ago, and it's a hybrid one. We're also gonna mention ByteDance launches open source's Seed-OSS. It's a 36 billion parameter family for long context reasoning with 500,000 tokens in support. Don't sleep on ByteDance. I haven't seen any excitement at all online about this, but usually the folks there are doing a great job, not only in visual stuff like Seed Dream and Seed Dance, but also they're getting into the open source as well. There's a paper from Z.AI and Tsinghua University called Compute RL. It's a framework that looks like it's state of the art on OSWorld, a benchmark for desktop agents control your computer. So really like taking state of the art there from Z.AI, very impressive. Also, there's a model from IBM and NASA together called Surya that was just dropped on open source for predicting solar weather. There's also NVIDIA released a full open source release of their Nemotron V2, I believe. Nemotron and 9 billion, small one, V2. And that was a fully open source LLM wizard from NVIDIA for working on this. And I think there's a few open source, but I think it's enough for us to cover. Not tons of stuff happened in the big companies. It looks like folks are gearing towards different releases. We saw Logan Kilpatrick from Google tweet an image of a banana, but nothing yet. There's a new stealth model called Sonic that showed up in Cursor and Cline and some other places under stealth. And then immediately folks discovered that it answers like Grok, but it's for coding. So supposedly that could be Grok code or whatever. So we'll chat about this a little bit. OpenAI launched an open unified attempt called Agents.md, because if you use more than one agent tooling, you know that many of them prefer to save their kind of notes in a different format. Agents.md, like a bunch of other stuff. Cursor has .cursor, Windsurf has .windsurf, and files in there. So OpenAI is saying enough. Let's try to unify folks. So we'll chat about Agents.md a little bit. Anything else I missed in the big companies and APIs? Oh, in open source, we also have breaking news. Cohere released command. I'm going back to open source because it reminded me. Cohere released command A reasoning. Also today. It's a reasoning model that they open sourced. Also today, we'll also mention this as well. And I think most of the news, at least the beginning of the week, the first cycle of the week, belonged to image diffusion models, because we had kind of an update, exciting update. I think it was out last week, but now it's picking up steam. Everybody's very excited about this new tested model called Nano Banana. This model has been enabling local editing, and it's like textual interface, and folks have been speculating where it's from. And I think folks are very excited to see Logan Kilpatrick post a banana on his feed. And then also, our friends at Qwen released Qwen Image Edit, which is a 20 billion image editing model on top of the Qwen image model that they had before, among the open models in image editing, which is very impressive. And shout out to folks from Qwen releasing this. And the best thing about this is that the capybara is back. So when they posted about this, the Qwen capybara, which they sunsetted as the mascot, is now back. And I was very happy to see this, and we'll show this on the thing.
There was one more thing from Alibaba. I don't think this is from the Qwen team, but the Alibaba team released a Quark Med. It's a medical foundation model. And we tested it. I think it was not actually that good. I checked the benchmarks, and the Qwen 235B base was still better in many of the benchmarks on it, but it did have a very good RAG system. And I tested that on their Chinese site, actually. And the RAG system for finding new things about diseases and stuff was excellent, but the model itself, I was not that impressed with. So just a small update on that end. It's just the ai.quark, QUARK.cn. It doesn't need a login now, but sometimes it asks for a phone number, which I don't have. But yeah.
We all need to get hooked up with Chinese phone numbers to be able to test their stuff. One last thing that I forgot to mention, and I saw this on my feed, a friend of the pod that built, Jesus Christ, I'm forgetting all the names today. Let me go find this. There was rumors that GPT got nerfed. Eric that built repo prompt, and he was on the show here. Shout out Eric. Apologies for mispronouncing your last name. He noticed that GPT-5 is getting nerfed, and by nerfed he means a lot of context that you send to it on the web, not necessarily the APIs on the web, just gets truncated. And apparently it was confirmed by OpenAI that this is a bug, and they're working on this. So if you had bad experiences with GPT, not like listening to your long prompts, but listening to the start of it and not necessarily the end, this could be the reason. So that's an update there. I think let's dive directly into open source. We'll cover open source, and then if you guys find it interesting to continue going, we'll go. Let's do open source. Open source AI, let's get it started. All right, so quite a week for open source, even though most of it, at least these two things, Cohere, Command A Reasoning, and DeepSeek V3 all came out within the last 15 hours. But a fairly impressive week for open source. I do want to mention NVIDIA's efforts as well, because they released a fully open release as well. I think we'll start with the smaller stuff, and then we'll cover DeepSeek, and we'll go into depth and talk about evaluations, because it just came out. And I think for the beginning of the week, many folks were like, hey, new DeepSeek, and then we're very disappointed about this release. I saw some DeepSeek aficionados, protectors on my feed try to go really hard to explain why they dropped the base model and nothing else. But now it's fairly clear that it was just maybe a mistaken release, or unclear why that release schedule. We'll get to DeepSeek though. So how about we start with, I want to talk about ByteDance's thing super quick. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this yet or not, but ByteDance, we'll start with smaller ones. We'll get to DeepSeek. ByteDance released, let me share actually my screen, the whole screen. Yes, like this. Yep. So ByteDance released Seed-OSS. ByteDance previously had Seed V1, I believe, and you could use this in their API. ByteDance released Seed-OSS. It's an Apache 2 licensed small-ish model, 36 base, 36 billion parameter base, and then 36 billion parameter instruct. Interesting thing that I haven't seen necessarily before, they released two base versions, and they call it with and without SYN. By SYN, they mean synthetic data. So they actually released two base models, one with synthetic data in training and one without. 500,000 token context window for this model, which is not unprecedented, but very welcome and interesting when it's trained, natively. And they focus on reasoning, agentic task, and international use, I18N. What is interesting? 36 billion parameters. It's not an MOE. It looks like it's a full dense model and has rope to extend to that level of context. Let's talk a little bit about the performance. I think it's a very impressive performance. They compare themselves to GPT-OSS. Obviously, they're bigger, right? GPT-OSS 20B. This is 36B, but they're fairly significantly beating GPT-OSS. Let me go find this project in open source in GitHub. They have a comparison chart here, and they compare themselves to the Seed 1.6 base, which is the API model that they have. So this is Seed-OSS, and they get 65 on MMLU Pro, which is, they compare themselves to, this is the base one.
So I'm looking at the benchmark too, and they only compare it to the 20B OSS, but that one only has 2B active parameters, and this is 36B dense. It's okay. I don't think it's that crazy, but again, I haven't tried it, so I'm just based on looking.
Interesting jump on MMLU Pro for the instruct version. They get 82 points, almost 83% of MMLU Pro.
It doubles also the GPQA one from the base. I don't know what's going on here. It might be fine. It's not necessarily bad or anything. I just haven't tested it.
Yeah, there's a lot of models this week that's hard to test as well. Welcome, LDJ. We're just chatting about the ByteDance Seed one. They also released a couple of weeks ago, we barely chat about this, Seed Prover. They released a specific version for lean versioning. Wolfram, any chatter that you saw about this model? Anything interesting? I haven't seen like tons of folks even mention that this model exists, even though ByteDance is a huge company and probably have like a very great, AI team.
This is a 36B, right? Yeah.
36B, instruct version and base versions, 2 base versions with synthetic and without synthetic. I think it's also interesting that they have a thinking budget where you can specify flexibility. The model chain of thought is shorter for simple tasks like IF eval, and so the score exhibits fluctuations. Here's an example of thinking budget set to 1512. You can see their thinking tokens getting reflected, and the model is aware of how many more tokens it has. It literally prints out seed COT budget reflect, and it says, I have used 129 tokens, and there are 383 tokens remaining for use. And then it talks. It's a very interesting way to solve the reasoning problem. It like reflects on itself. Go ahead, LJ.
Yeah, I was seeing the benchmarks for this yesterday, and what I think is just really interesting, just kind of looking at the bigger picture, is when I was seeing the benchmarks, it seems like in a lot of areas, depending on what benchmarks you prefer to look at, sometimes maybe even most benchmarks, it's better than the original R1, which is more than 10 times its total param count. And I just think it's just really exciting and impressive how we're improving in efficiency so much here.
Yeah, R1 did set kind of a benchmark suite that many are comparing themselves to, right? Even themselves, which we're going to talk about next. All right, so folks, this has been a Seed from ByteDance. It's open source for you to try. They're looking at agentic capabilities, general capabilities, and it has trained, they say, only with 12 trillion tokens. Excellent performance in several popular open benchmarks. So shout out to ByteDance. We will not say no to another Apache 2 model, of course. But as always, this needs to be probably ran on somewhere. I haven't even seen this on LM Studio. I need to go and see if LM Studio even runs this. But 36B should be able to run on the Mac with ease.
Oh, there's only AWQ. I don't think people have even made it. Nobody even knows about this.
Yeah. So if this model blows up in the next week because of something crazy that it does, you know where you heard about this first. The 36 billion parameter Seed-OSS from ByteDance with a 500,000 context window. I think this is important to shout out. We're moving forward to our next open source release that's not ByteDance yet. That's not DeepSeek yet. Let's chat about Cohere Command R. I think it's worth. I think our general rule is if it dropped an hour before the show, breaking news button apply. So let's do that. Let's add some breaking news. AI breaking news coming at you only on ThursdAI. If it wasn't in the show notes yesterday and today it appeared, to me it's breaking news, but also to you folks, Cohere, the OpenAI of the North from Canada. Cohere has released Command A reasoning, Command R, Command A, different ones. They're focusing on enterprise. They released a reasoning model. Cohere, if you like this?
It's a non-commercial use only research license that they usually use. So you need to contact them for a real license if you want to use it commercially. So it's CC by NC.
But hey, at least we got to wait. So Cohere releases a reasoning focus with agentic focus. We want to see some benchmarks and take a look. Nisten, as you're the closest physically to Cohere, what do you think about this release?
Again, you use Cohere to kind of clean up data so it's out of distribution, because they're one of the few that only train on their own data sets so far and don't use the other models. So there is an actual business use for them. But they didn't have a reasoning model at all. This is pretty welcome. It is a bit annoying to not be able to open the config on their website to actually see the model parameters, even on Hugging Face, without filling out the form. But other than that, it seems fine.
We're looking
at
some
the same architecture. So
we're looking at some agentic benchmarks. BFCL, so the Berkeley Function Calling Leaderboard, they're showing impressive scores here, 70% on top of R1, the kind of the updated R1 from May, 63%, GPT-OSS, 61%, so 70% is a quite significant jump. Also on Tau Bench, they're looking at like state of the art amongst the open source ones. Of course, the selection of models here is very, very specific.
Yeah, R1 is not a very good agentic model to begin with. I mean, it was okay when it came out, but it does help that the model can act agentically and act as a filter for other things, but that's not the greatest one too.
So when they say it surpasses other privately deployable models in its class, they specifically sidestep the fact that like their model is not open source necessarily because of the license. Privately deployable is not a term I've heard recently or that much popular, but that's all right. They need to make money. In its class, I heard tweet, if you want to show that your model is the best in class, come up with your own class. And then just select the models that are worse than you, and then you're best in class. Ta-da! LDJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they're actually saying the opposite in that tweet, where when they say privately deployable, they're referring to open source models here. So I think they just mean models that you could run on-prem and privately.
They're not necessarily saying open source because their model is not open source. And they compare themselves to R1, which is Apache 2, if I don't believe, no mistaken, GPT-OSS, definitely Apache 2. Magistral Medium was not.
These are impressive BFCL benchmarks here for general tool use. This is... And what's interesting here is I think this might be one of the first models we've kind of gotten from a decently sized lab in a while, where it's like this many active params.
Yeah.
And so like R1, you know, that's only 30 billion active. Then you have GPT 120B OSS, which that's about like 5B active, right?
Yep.
And there is some theory around more active parameters might be more conducive to more multi-hop reasoning and agentic capabilities. So maybe this is a little bit of evidence towards that.
Yeah, and they show, thanks LDJ, they show some other things here in their thread, including thinking tokens model performance increasing with thinking tokens, which is the same confirmation of the new test time compute paradigm that we've seen before.
Yeah, the tool call looks pretty straightforward, but I like LDJ's point there because we saw that with models that are very sparse mixture of experts, they do have trouble in multi-step. Like they can call tools fine, but like to call like 20 tools or more, that's some trouble. And funny enough, the Qwen 332B was often better at tool calling, even though it's much older and not really trained for that than the MOE, just because it was slightly larger. And we also saw that, yeah, it does look like a bigger, denser model is still better at tool calling. So there might be something in here that the benchmark's not really capturing, because even at 110B, you do have GLM Air, which performs very well. But there is something interesting here in doing multi-step tool work. And does the model have enough meat in it or active parameters to actually carry that through? This is something that a dense model does kind of do better.
So this is a big dense model, 111B with 256 context length. You can deploy this on, they said 2 GPUs. Very interesting. I will say Cohere is focused on enterprise use, and they posted a comment from the head of AI at SAP. So definitely big enterprises, they like this kind of stuff. Big enterprises, especially Western ones, may not necessarily go with the Chinese open source models, privately deployable, the GPT open source. You guys are right, less active parameters. Some people want to spend the GPU to see those results, and they also talk about safety. So shout out to Cohere. We would love Cohere's releases with Apache 2 licenses, obviously, but hey, for research use, it's dope. It supports 23 languages as well, which is very impressive. Cohere was also great at multilingual. Wolfram, you remember the Aya series of models, right?
Yeah, it's released under the same org, by the way, on Hugging Face.
Mm-hmm.
So the same org.
I actually didn't like the Aya as much as the original Command R, which was already very good in the European languages. So the other one had even more languages, but I was already very happy. So Cohere has always been very strong multilingually.
Yeah, they're really working on like supporting a bunch of language supports, and this seems to follow that suit. So shout out to Cohere on the release. And I think it's time for us to mention the NVIDIA one super quick, and then we'll definitely have to go and talk about the biggest news of open source this week, which is our folks from the Wellbers.
Maybe we can sneak in 2 smaller but still notable ones. I'll do NVIDIA first.
Yeah, let's do NVIDIA first. All right, so shout out to our friend Chris, LLM Wizard, and other folks at NVIDIA for this release. They have released Nemotron Nano 9 billion parameter V2. A second version of this. This is a new one, V2. They released the base model, pre-aligned model. The thing that they do with Nemotron always, we must remind folks, they prune and distill the models as well. So they take like different, they used to take Llama, right? And then they switched, I think, or is it still Llama based? They prune and distill and make them very, very small with a lot of performance. It's a reasoning model and has a bunch of phases of RL. And they have this.
Oh, the other thing is that this is a mixed architecture. So it's a mixed Mamba and transformer. Right. And a lot of the rumors are that because Mamba type state space models had issues with like just being good. A lot of people suspect that when Google models, like Gemini models, go into longer context, again, this is completely unfounded. We've never confirmed this, but they suspect that there are like mixed attention layers that allow it to run fast at longer context. So I think it's more interesting in that regard. And if someone can please just show that it does run a lot faster at longer context, that would be huge, because that's one thing we don't test for today. Even when you hear inference providers from Cerebrus, and which we've had on the show, it's one thing to show the speed for the first like 20,000 tokens. It's a whole other thing to show the speed after 128,000 tokens, because it's usually like a quarter or less. But if this can maintain that full output after 128,000 tokens, I think there's something huge here. Otherwise, the model itself, I never really found them that remarkable for commercial use. I mean, they were always good enough to let people use them.
And we have a comment from the guy, Chris from NVIDIA LLM Wizard on X says, this time it's actually our own pre-train, which is great. And it's great to have Chris comment on the show. Nistan, as you were talking about this on their blog, it said, finally, both these base models and align models were compressed so as to enable inference over context length of 128K tokens on a single NVIDIA A10G GPU. So it does look like they squeezed the crap out of this model for longer context as well. So that's great.
That new architecture really comes at play here. So that's what I think a lot more people should test, because we don't test for that. Like, we don't post inference speeds for a certain GPU or provider after 128K, for example.
LDJ, I think you have a hand up.
Yeah, there's something that they mentioned. I think it's maybe, I'm not sure if you're on the same blog I am, but I think towards the top they mention a 6x higher throughput. Yeah.
Yes, I saw that. To Qwen 3, 8 billion parameter.
Which is of course which is not Mamba hybrid, that's just pure transformer. And the 6x higher throughput, I'm not sure, like Nistan was saying, like there's some questions of, okay, well, which context length on average are they testing? Like what type of examples are they testing that at? But either way, if that's like high or low context examples, that's still really impressive. And maybe it's not even necessarily, it might not even necessarily be much higher tokens per second per user. But even if you could just have in a batch when you're doing mass inference, just 6 times higher throughput overall, it's still really important.
We should also mention how amazing for open source folks these models are. They have released 3 base versions, right? Sorry, main version and 2 base versions. The aligned and prune reasoning model, Nemotron Nano 9B, the base one, prune base one, and the base one before alignment or pruning. Not only this, they said they're proud to release a majority of the data used for pre-training. The Nemotron pre-training dataset is a collection of 6.6 trillion tokens of premium web crawl, math code, and SFT. Folks, this absolutely deserves applause.
It's actually another really interesting point. The fact that it was originally a 12B, they said, and they pruned it down to 9 billion parameters. And this is kind of something that's been talked about a lot in various papers, and people kind of thinking that it's maybe one of those somewhat obvious things that people should be doing for better models.
Awesome. So shout out to the NVIDIA folks. Definitely an interesting model to go play with. It's available on Hugging Face, and I think they also support it elsewhere. So shout out to folks who work.
Yeah, I think they're the only like 2 North American labs, them and Allen AI, that actually post all their training data as well.
Yeah,
like the 2 major ones. NVIDIA has been pretty consistent at it, and so has Allen AI at just posting the full thing. The data set, the fine-tuned set, everything. Yeah.
So technically, if you're watching this and you're a fine-tuner and you have 2 base models to choose from to see if you can get the same post-training results and do the same RL, this is also a reasoning model. A great release overall. Shout out to NVIDIA folks. And Wolfram, what was the second thing you wanted to talk about with DeepSeek?
I just want to say something about NVIDIA, because with all the openness, the license, I'm not sure if it's really an open source license, because they have some restrictions. If you sue them for copyright violations, you get revoked, or if you work around the safety measures, they can revoke your license. So that is a bit strange. I don't know many licenses that are like that. And you have to follow their ethical AI guidelines. So it's not completely open, but anyway, just wanted to point it out. Watch the license.
Well, yeah, definitely watch the license. It's called the NVIDIA Open Model License. But also, NVIDIA is like the biggest company in the world in terms of, everybody's probably coming for them. But it's great that they release things in the open. Maybe not as fully open source as Apache, but definitely they have lawyers who are already millionaires because they just like have NVIDIA stock.
So I do think this is at least kind of nice on their part. I am reading all their stuff. And so what it prohibits is illegal surveillance, illegal collection of biometric information. So you can't use it to spy on people and to harass people and stuff and to sue them. Okay, this is not bad. I was a bit worried about a custom license, but this seems pretty good overall. There's like one little strange thing there, but overall, I think you can just use it. Just don't make waifus with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I'm just still impressed that we have 9 billion parameter models with 72 at AI Me 25, solving 72% of the math competition, the toughest math competition we have for 2025. Like GPQA at 64, a lot of world knowledge here in this small model. Very, very impressive. And the ruler 128 is 78. So they're getting very significant long context things as well. Right, folks, it's time to talk about the main course of open source. Wolfram, unless you want to squeeze in one more thing before.
I just would mention it. So Intern S1 released the Intern S1 mini model, which is an 8B Qwen 3 based model with a vision encoder, so it's multimodal. And the other one I just want to quickly mention is OpenCUA 32B, which is, as far as I know, Qwen based as well, using the ReL model. It's a computer use agent and getting very good scores, so check those out.
Oh, also, shout out to Haihao Shen from Intel, because he's just been carrying Intel the whole time for the last 2 years and does actually make the best quantizations of all the other models. Like the Intel quants are some of the highest precision 4-bit quants you will find. So if you want to run DeepSeek 3.1 or the coder and you want to run it in 4-bit, I'd say either use the Intel quant. Also, the Red Hat ones are pretty good, but the Intel ones that Haihao makes are, I think, one of the best done ones. So, yeah.
Speaking of old computing dinosaurs such as Intel, there's another one that just released a model together with NASA. There's a model from, we'll quickly cover this, from IBM and NASA called Surya. It's a open source model to predict solar weather, and it's trained on like an ungodly amount of tokens. Surya provides a powerful tool for understanding solar dynamics and predicting space weather, critical for protecting satellites, power grids, communication systems, blah, 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 and astronauts. It's a 366 parameter transformer model, pre-trained on 9 years of multi-instrument data from NASA, or like almost 200 terabytes of data. That's very impressive. So shout out to IBM and NASA for this model and the 80 downloads on Hugging Face that this received, because like it's immense, and I don't know many folks who have use for this, but I'm sure some scientists will enjoy. And hey, we're pro open source here. All right, folks, I think it's time. This is the end of, and maybe the crown jewel of the open source releases this week. And we're all very, very excited to tell you that DeepSeek started this week, very unimpressively, releasing a base model with no model card that people's like, what is this? And then try to like figure this out. And then DeepSeek followed up today, or I guess tonight, with an actual release and model card and everything. So let's dive into this. We have an MIT licensed DeepSeek V3.1. So they consider this a 0.1 release, very similar to like how Qwen, do you guys remember also Qwen released like a 3.1 as well? It's a 685 billion parameter model that is now a hybrid model, a hybrid reasoner. So before they had V3, which is the non-reasoning model, and then R1 famously was the GPRO RL trained reasoning model. They have now combine those two in a hybrid model. Not only this, they claim that this model thinks less than R1. And by thinking less, we mean thinking less to get to the same results. I think it's very important to say, because all we see from the test time compute paradigm is the more the model thinks in tokens, the better the performance is. they're bucking that trend by saying like this model thinks less tokens than R1, which means you as a user get the answer faster, but gets similar or better results. They also have smarter tool calling, and yeah, the higher thinking efficiency is something they highlight, responding more quickly. Folks, what do you think? A small V1 release, but the impressive benchmarks updates are here. So we definitely should mention the whale bros releasing a base model and instruct model finally for folks to get very excited. Wolfram, I see you getting excited. What's your take?
Definitely. I hope it's not too noisy in here. We have an office opening party, so I'm getting in a special compartment so I can do the podcast. Because yeah, I was very excited when I saw the model appear and without a model card, and so I was hoping that they would still release the instruct-tuned version, which is now out as well. And I checked the benchmark scores, and that's a great thing. It is almost as good or even better in some benchmarks than the DeepSeek R1, but it is much faster. And we all know that thinking models are great, but if you need an answer quickly, then you may still go to a non-thinking version just so you can get the answer fast. So I'm very excited to use this, and yeah, even more excited than R1 actually. Yeah, so this is something I will definitely try as soon as I can myself.
As soon as it
Very
lands,
excited.
and it's gonna land. I have a sneak peek for you guys. Folks are already working. It's gonna land on WNB Inference very soon, so you'll be able to try this. Very interesting. This part on the model card. You guys want to discuss this? The 32K extension phase has been increased tenfold to 630 billion tokens, while the 128K extension phase has been extended 3.3 to 209 billion tokens.
So when they extend the context, because the base, I think, is only trained up to 32K. And so I don't know if that, once they went to the instruct or they just added a lot more instruction tune data for at first at 32K, and then also a lot more for the 128K, because it's really expensive to train at 128K. Like you can't use a whole lot of stuff, like your compute requirements grow almost exponentially. So I think that's what they meant. I think that's the instruct tune.
And because it's a hybrid model, then you'll be able to define how and when you want it to reason as well. A very similar thing. Are we seeing a convergence back to the hybrid model thing? We saw Qwen kind of sidestep away from this, but the GPT-OSS models were hybrid as well. So what do we think? LDJ, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, the original DeepSeek V3, that was trained. At the end, they trained it on 32K long data for about 60 billion tokens, and then they increased that by 10x to about 600 billion. And then they also did a 128K token phase where it's data that's 128K long. And before that was only around 70 billion tokens, and now they made that phase 200 billion tokens.
I do notice it being better. I haven't vibe coded with it, so I have no comments on that one. But just like regular questions about making diagrams, doing science type of stuff, I am noticing this is better than what I was getting before. It's very, very good at ASCII drawings. Also, I want to say that the DeepSeek R1 is still one of the best medical AI models you can get, open or closed source. There were other benchmarks. There was a private benchmark by Stanford done, and it scored on top of the benchmarks that other labs do not know about, that's run privately. It just got to the top of that from Stanford. So I'm very excited to do the medical benchmarking on this one. So far, I can say science type of questions, planning type of questions, making diagrams and reviews. This feels better to me. This feels quite a bit better.
I'm looking at benchmarks here. Yeah. We're showing benchmarks on the video stream, and DeepSeek R1, the one that they updated in May, right? They had an updated version since the original one, has multiple benchmarks here that this model doesn't quite get to. What this, we have to remember, this is a hybrid model, you can decide, but they're comparing this with the previous V3 and also the non-thinking version of this one. It looks like the non-thinking version of this one gets pretty much almost the same one as the V3 from March, and then the thinking version of this one, while being faster in thinking, gets similar scores to R1. So I think that this is like the main improvement here. Besides the long context probably improvements, the main one is like it just gets there faster with pretty much the same results, with R1 getting a little bit higher on HLE, on Humanities Last Exam, around 17. a significant performance boost on search agent type tasks like simple QA, 93 over here. Humanities last exam plus Python search is 29.
Stop reporting that exam. It's just like the most stupid name for
the name
a benchmark. Just get rid of it.
The name was definitely not that great, but Code Forces is 2000 here compared to DeepSeek R1 900. This is like a very significant improvement on top of the R1, but also like it's a hybrid model. And I think we should call this out as well.
I think I saw much higher SWE verified. Is that 66 or 68 on?
I don't see results here reported for the thinking SWE-bench verified, but the non-thinking SWE-bench verified gets 66, which is a significant jump from 44 for R1. 66. I actually don't know how to interpret this because like SWE-bench verified is, based on which agent harness you use, you get better results. So we don't actually know. I don't think it's reported which one they use here. But yeah, it's a significant jump in coding in SWE-bench multilingual and also terminal bench. Oh my God, look at this. R1 had 5.7 at terminal bench and this one has 31. So significant jump on this as well. Looks like they significantly improved the coding training. Wolfram?
Yeah, and I'm excited because the hybrid mode also means if you can run this model, if you have the hardware to run it once, you can use it in thinking mode for planning, for instance, and then in non-thinking mode for execution. So having a hybrid model is very, very cool in this regard. And was a bit sad that Qwen said it's better to do different models, but DeepSeek, I hope they found a way to do both and excel in both.
Yeah.
Oh, so Qwen 3 also gets 65.8 or 67 on the SWE bench verified with the thing. And okay, so and terminal bench, the Qwen 3 coder gets 37.5. So this is up there now in the competition.
So 2 highlights that they have. Yam, feel free to chime in here as you see fit. They mentioned specifically that model was trained with search engines in mind. They have a specific search agent format for searching tool call in thinking mode to support search agent. So it will the tool calling is going to happen in thinking mode, which is great. Complex questions that require access to external up-to-date information. DeepSeek V3.1 can leverage a user-provided search tool for a multi-turn tool calling process. This is deep research type stuff, folks. This is very, very impressive.
This is pretty impressive. Yeah, because before the issue was that it would think and then it would do the tool call. Yeah. Now they inject that into the thinking. Okay, that is something else.
That's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
And then also the last thing that I will take back, they will say SWE-bench is evaluated with our internal code agent framework, which we don't know about, so it's hard to judge SWE-bench things. The
do
license
we know what's
is
max oh, yes.
License MIT. Context window, I think, was it 128? 128, yeah.
Wasn't it 256K?
No, it's
I thought it was 256K. In the config?
That's so too.
I'm on the model card, folks. I don't know what you guys are seeing. Jan Pelek, comments on you on this incredible release from DeepSeek. I want to hear to see if you're with us. Almost there.
It's 164K in the config max position embeddings. So I guess you could extend that by 1 or 2. Okay, it does think too long. I am testing it right now, and I am glad that they added the option to stop the thinking because I just asked it to make like a 3D isometric ASCII diagrams of a hospital on Mars with labels, and it's just been thinking for like 10, 15 minutes now. So,
alrighty, LDJ, well, Jan comes up.
Yeah, I think there's a question here which I'm curious of the rest of your opinions on this is, do we think they're abandoning the R1 name now? Because now it's essentially just thinking in DeepSeek V3, and like, is the next one just going to be DeepSeek V4 and like no R2? Because that's what I'm kind of thinking now.
Hard to say about Well Bros, but they're definitely look. This model came out like less than 17 hours ago. It has 5,000 downloads. Now, I will say, I noticed somewhere that folks are talking about downloads on Hugging Face is not indicative of use at all. All you need is send the header or something, right? So like it's very easy to show big numbers on Hugging Face, but not necessarily indicative of use or download. But it is very exciting. The release tweet almost got 10,000 likes already while the US was asleep as well. So it's very impressive. The folks are following this model. Everybody learned about R1 as like the main thing, but they do remember DeepSeek. I think R2 is going to happen. Why wouldn't they release R2? Even though this is a hybrid model, R2 is only a thinking model.
In that case, maybe R2 will just be able to think even longer and harder, I guess. Maybe that's what it'll be specialized in.
Could be.
Can you hear me?
Yes, let's go.
All right. So let me poop the party. Attention is all you need. Okay, full transformers all the way. It's fine if you do some hybrid models, but at the end, I think, in my opinion, that the transformers are here to stay. But look, I really want to point out the trend that we see towards agents. All models whatsoever, all providers, everyone is training on it for agentic use cases, such as Mistral, Qwen, Claude, now DeepSeek. Everyone is going to agentic. And I think it's more than the actual profit, you can say profit potential, because everybody see Cursor and Cloud Code and the amount of API calls each of them is giving to their creators. And probably the model makers see this and think, well, we could use some of these API calls for ourselves. But I think it's more. I think that we see a trend after Cloud Code and everything, everyone starts to realize that, wait, if we can train the model ourselves, we can make a tool that is powerful for our day-to-day and custom made for us. I think that what we see is that each of the makers is also custom making the model itself for themselves. It's very hard to prove, but I think that the reason we see everyone making their own is also because of this. And it's amazing to see. We really got to the point where agentic coding models are useful in real life. And it's amazing to see.
100%. And it looks like not only we're getting to the point it's useful, we're getting like significantly smaller and quicker responses for the same usefulness as well. So I think to highlight the V3.1 DeepSeek release, what they're highlighting is definitely the same scores-ish, even better scores, with significantly less tokens. So what we're showing on screen right now is a very interesting chart that I would love to see from other models as well, where they not only, listen, I think this is kind of like what you referred to in the beginning, they're not only show the score comparison, they show the score comparison with the number of thinking tokens it took the model to get there. So you see for AIME, which is math competition, International Math Olympiads, whatever, of 2025, R1 received a 87.5% score. So like 87% of the questions with 22,000 tokens. V3.1, which is the new one, if you say it fast, V3.1 has the R1 in it. V3.1 has 88%, 88.4, so almost like 1% higher with 15,000 tokens compared to the 22,000. So slightly better score with significantly less tokens, so significantly faster. It's very impressive. And then also GPQA Diamond, they get 81%, 81% for R1, 80.1% for this one, but with half the tokens in thinking. So very impressive. Right. Anything else? Oh, yeah, of course. We have to mention that the API for DeepSeek itself is now supporting Anthropic. I think that's a very worth calling out because it looks like they're not the only one. Kimi started this trend, and now they are also supporting the Anthropic API.
Well, it means the Cloud Code proxy will work with it.
Remember the context length problem because it is only 128K, so you have to do it manually.
It's 164 on their model card, so it might just be fine. Also, Claude has been nerfing their context lately. It might be exactly right. Like people reported it being less than 200K often.
Shout out to DeepSeek, well bros, MIT licensed, open models, incredible. We'll definitely give them some applause. This is the top of the open source news for this week. We're pretty sure there's going to be great hybrid models. It looks like are here to stay. Definitely shout out to Wilbros resurfacing and giving us great models as well. They also updated their API pricing, but as you guys remember, when R1 was released, their API got super quickly degraded because everybody was trying to take it. Very impressive scores. 66% on Sweetbench verified is very impressive. Anything else on DeepSeek, or are we moving forward? I think we're moving forward, folks. Let's talk about the new mystery models in the big companies, APIs, and LLMs. There's a new stealth model called Sonic. Anybody had a chance to use this already? Not yet. So if you guys go to Cursor and you go here, there's a new mystery model called Sonic. It's a reasoning model, and the only thing that we can say is that it's under test. But apparently, when you ask it in a very specific way who it is, or what to call functions calling, it calls functions with like XAI/function/something. So pretty much Elon Musk hinted that XAI is gonna bring about some reason like coding model specific. It looks like Sonic is being tested. Folks report that it's very fast and fairly decent, but I haven't seen anything beyond this.
Okay, so most likely Grok coder.
Most likely.
It looks like. Okay.
We don't deal with speculation, but when it's obvious like this, when you ask the model who you are, it's like I can't say XAI. I can't say XAI.
You can. There is a point where you just can't hide it at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, the model is finalized. You can ask it, and it's finalized. It's gonna be like a chat. It's gonna tell you. So, yeah.
I will say sometimes it's not super reliable to ask the model about itself because like the training data doesn't include it, but sometimes they do include the information in there. Like we said from GPT-OSS, I think they actually included the information in there as well.
Used it, and it said XAI.
Yeah. So we pretty much know. And the other thing in big labs, I think we should mention that OpenAI launched this like Agents.md website. So let's chat about this super quick. I find this very helpful. Basically, why Agents.md? I want to show one specific comment from I think it was Romain Wet, and he posted about this getting released, and then he said there's different rules for agentic stuff. So you can see .cursor, there's folder structure, cursor rules instructions, GitHub Copilot instructions, Kiro instructions, Windsurf rules instructions, prompt rules, and agent and cloud, etc. And then there's also the MCP configs. MCP configs are also like Codium has Windsurf. It's very interesting. The MCP config for Windsurf is under .codium, but the instructions are just .windsurf. .cursor has MCP JSON. VS Code has MCP JSON. Like there's a lot of like files. And the more agentic tools you use, not that you should use more than one yourself, but hey, when you work in a team and sometimes your teammates want to use Cline or whatever, and some use Windsurf, there's too many files and it goes crazy. And then the folks at OpenAI decided to switch codecs to use Agents.md, which is a unified format for all these like instructions things and setup commands and basically instructions for agents. It's now supports from codecs. AMP code, shout out to Ryan Carson, our friend. AMP code supports this. Jules, the coding editor from Google, supports this. Cursor now supports this, and RuCode. And hopefully other folks will follow as well. Nissan, I want to hear from you on this topic.
I mean, I appreciate their effort and recognizing the problem, but they're also just adding one more config file, and I don't know what to do. I've set up an API middleware that just grabs all that crap and just injects it as a system prompt because there's just too many. So my solution is build one more agent. So it's not great. This is a mess right now. I am just annoyed. I don't have a good...
I will say, so supporting this, AMP supporting this, Codex supporting this, and Jules, hopefully the Gemini coder thing they release will support this as well. I think it's a good enough momentum to get started and a big enough problem. People do hate this thing. But yeah, I think it's like technical stuff. Very interesting that OpenAI is trying to give us some support. And they boast a number here. 20,000 open source projects already support Agents.md because Agents.md was already used by some. They just chose one of the better used ones. So they did find, so it's not like one more. They just like found one to coalesce it around. And specifically, very funny, .md is a top level domain as well. So you could say agents.md and get to the website as well. I think that's it from big companies, folks. I think that's it. What else do we have? The only thing other than this that I had is GPT-5 getting nerfed, and Eric Povencher from Repo Prompt, yes, first time, he mentioned that he noticed this and tested it multiple times. Obviously, Repo Prompt is this software where you can upload the whole repo and it will create a very smart prompt with a lot of context for you. We had Eric on the show a couple times, and he has mentioned that GPT-5 got nerfed by specifically cutting context on the web UI. LDJ, go ahead. Have you heard about this?
Sorry, I was actually going to comment on a company news, but
yeah.
Okay.
Let's finish with this and then
Yeah.
Eric Provencher. He showed examples of it where it says they do truncation at the context level even though his prompt was less than 60K tokens. And he mentioned that multiple folks from OpenAI confirmed this. So this is definitely a bug to be fixed.
Very low.
Yeah, GPT-5 has significant.
The whole point of using GPT-5 in Cursor and stuff, I use with that in VS Codium, like the open source VS Code, it works there too, is because it's still the best model where you can dump in 300,000 tokens and get a very nice review that pays attention to your prompt. So when I ask for stuff that, hey, find me duplicates of the code and list every single file and make me instructions for every single file to delete redundant code and stuff, GPT-5 is still the best one to do that. I mean, the whole point of it, to use it at long context, is the best one now. Yeah.
And so it's not great on the ChatGPT interface, but hopefully it was confirmed. And I also read some comment from an OpenAI engineer that said, we only nerf models when we have a good reason to do so, and we announce that reason. So he did confirm that the models are getting nerfed from GPT-5, but he mentioned that this is not the case here, so it looks like it's a bug. LDJ, what is the other big company news that we skipped?
So I guess we don't know for sure if it's a big company or not. Have you heard of the Nano Banana news?
Oh, we're going to get there, 100%.
Okay.
And it does seem like some folks are leaning into this being big company news. I think this is the next thing that we're going to go into. Before this, I'll do a brief this week's buzz to tell you about some cool tool that you may use that was released from Weights and Biases. This week's buzz is according to ThursdAI, where I talk about multiple things that we in Weights and Biases from CoreWeave has released this week. And I wish I could tell you, hey, DeepSeek V3.1 is already on our inference, but not yet, but it's getting there. So when you hear this, it may already be there. So go check WB Inference Landing for the cheapest price for DeepSeek V3.1, the new hybrid model from DeepSeek. However, we also have this release from a co-founder that probably worked on this because he's very. We talked with Chris on the show, one of the 3 co-founders of Weights and Biases. Chris loves to do multiple projects like blow up as well. So hopefully this will also blow up. He released a library called Catnip, which is a developer environment for agentic programming where you can run multiple cloud codes and you can run a bunch of cloud codes, everybody with its own context, everybody with its own notification system. So you get a notification about when you need to join and have them all run in separate environments. It's all done in isolated environments for Docker for you. Building LLM applications, agentic systems, or any project where you want multiple AI coding systems work in parallel without stepping on each other's toes. It's called Catnip. It's on GitHub. And why is it Catnip? Because multi-agent coding workspace. If you want to run multiple cloud code sessions. Shout out to Chris von Pelt for releasing this super cool isolated sandbox environment for agents. And now, I think and as well, WB Inference is a great inference service and you guys should definitely try it out. Watch out for our release thread. If you want to get some credits, we'll still be very happy to take your feedback in exchange of some credits. All right, moving on from this week's buzz, let's talk about image diffusion models. And diffusion world this week has been very hot. So let's go there. All right, LDJ, you want to kick us off with the Nano Banana stuff?
Yeah, so I believe it was in El Marina, right, that people discovered this thing called Nano Banana, and it seems to be this image model that's very good at especially taking things from, let's say you have 2 different images, one image of maybe a book in your house, another image of Kylie Jenner or something, and then make it look like Kylie Jenner is holding this book, or make it look like this car is in this scenery. And it's able to just do this with such precision. And there's other examples, even more complex things where somebody took like an anime figurine and asked it to create a 3D mesh around it as if it was like in some 3D modeling software. And it looked pretty insane where it looked like it was perfectly creating this. And then people even asking, hey, can you actually make the mesh be 5 inches off of their skin? And then it redoing it. And it's just is pretty insane in the precision and world modeling.
Yeah, so we don't know where this model is from. However, we've seen Logan Kilpatrick post a emoji of a banana, hinting that potentially this is from the Big G. And there's folks who speculate that like Nano Banana use 3D objects, volume, and then edits inside that space because the 3D mesh is like almost perfect here on top of this person. And then it kind of looks super cool. There's a bunch of other examples of stuff like replacement stuff. So you can have a product image and the pose reference, and then another pose reference, and you can get a very precise product placement type output. So we don't know where this model is. It's on LM Arena. You can use this, make the dress white and make the shoes match the dress. I don't see the shoes here. How can folks use this if it's not released by the time that the podcast is released? LM Arena, as far as I saw?
I think so.
It's very, very impressive. Specifically, the thing that they have is 3D figurines. It's really good at different angles as well. So I think that's very interesting how you can turn and do facial things. And the new angle from the same spot is very, like, this is an example that many folks showed. So here is, let's take a look at another one. Everybody calling this a game changer. This is the input picture. We see 4 people smoking cigarettes in a room. This is super cool. So the next thing we see is Nano Banana showing the same image from another angle from the top. It's very interestingly reminds me of, do you guys remember Runway? Kind of also a model from video that you asked like different positions. And so you have these folks smoking outside and them getting old. It's a very impressive image editing model. Very, very impressive. And the last thing we need to mention is that it may come at some point. We don't know when, but it's now available on LM Arena kind of image editing software. And speaking of image editing, the last thing that we have on the show is the Qwen image edits. You guys want to mention this super quick? Qwen. Wolfram, you saw this. You used this one, right?
Yeah, I used it, and it is fully open source. That is, I think, MIT by Apache. I'm not sure, one of the two, which is why I prefer it over Flux Context, which is also image editing model like this, and I've been using it successfully before. And this is even more open source, so great.
Yeah. So Qwen image edit is a 20 billion parameter Qwen image like improvement that can do replacement stuff. I want to show the folks this video that the team at Qwen posted this. And you can turn things into Ghibli characters, like, you know, the huge thing with GPT thing. You can do this capybara that they brought back. Yeah, capybara is back. You can switch it to create multiple characters within the same character doing multiple stuff. The world we live in now is insane. This is incredible. Like, imagine being an animator like 4 years ago, and like not even knowing that this would be possible in the future. And now you can take this model in the same kind of style and character. All these models are great at style transfer, so you can like take one style and transfer it to another. And and this is fully open source, like Wolfram said. You can add and remove objects, you can replace some objects. Very impressive. And also you can do modification, you can do expansion for aspect ratios as well. LDJ, any comments on this one?
Yeah, I didn't get to look too much into this. Besides, from what I saw, people were saying Nano Banana is still better.
Yeah, well, we don't know if Nano Banana coming and how to use this and whether or not it's open source. And this one lands as top #1, I think, on open source. It's very impressive. So shout out to our friends at Alibaba Qwen. There's in the beginning, some release issue. I saw Jing post about this and then he said sorry, and then like we can use this now. So shout out to them for working on this. And this is only 2 cents per image on different providers as well. Very, very impressive.
You can run it on your own GPU. I'm looking forward to people making actual full cartoons of this, like having an agentic episode generator.
Yeah.
Or like making an entire South Park episode. Okay, maybe not South Park is banned in China, but whatever, people can do whatever they want with it though. It's
I think
pretty good. I think it could use more training, but it is the best one I think you can run so far. And Flux is not that far behind in this regard.
Yeah, and Flux is not fully open source.
Flux is non-commercial.
Yeah, only the Flux, the smaller one, and also they definitely have Yeah. Folks are commenting, by the way, that the Nano Banana is not available anywhere yet besides LM Arena. So this is where you need to go and test this. All right, folks. I think that we sped up through the news. It wasn't like a huge weekend news. Anything else that we haven't discussed yet that you guys want to bring to the discussion? And if not, I think we'll let folks go back. Nistin? I definitely need to drop in like a 5 minute. Okay, cool. So it sounds like we covered all the news, folks. A shorter episode today. I also hopefully didn't notice was coughing off the mic. I'm getting through some sickness. But hey, there's been a chill week up until yesterday, and now DeepSeek V3 is trending in technology. So DeepSeek is definitely the biggest news here. Go play with DeepSeek V3.1, which we'll have on our infants very, very soon for you guys as well. With this, I want to say a huge thanks to everybody who tunes in, who listens every week. Next week, I'm going to be out in the desert doing some Burning Man stuff, but the folks will be here taking care of you and every AI news that they will miss. I'll definitely tune in. This time I won't have the chance to because there's no internet on the desert. If anybody's there, please find me and DM me. I would love to meet with you. Besides this, though, next week's probably going to be very interesting. Thanks, Wolfram, for taking the lead on that, and folks for joining. This has been ThursdAI, your weekly source of news for the past 2.5 years and even more. We're always here. We're always here. We're going to keep you updated. Thank you, Wolfram. Thank you, Nistan, LDJ, and Yam for joining. And thank you, everybody else who tuned in. If you missed any part of the show, I will post the full episode on the podcast so you'll be able to tune in, and the list of links I will send in a newsletter, probably without extra detail. And we'll see you here next week. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.